Bass.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm, brought to you by funkandstuff.net. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I'm your host, Scott Dr. Jigs Goldfine, musicologist and author of Everything's on the One, the First Guide to Funk. If you don't have your copy, get on over to Amazon and pick one up. You'll be so glad you did. Whether you're watching the video version of this at funkandstuff.net or on YouTube, or listening to the audio-only podcast version from providers like iTunes and Spotify, as always, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in the show. Speaking of which, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube. That's where Truth and Rhythm lives. All kinds of goodies. You'll get early premieres, and it's all free, so make sure you sign up. Tell a friend, tell family. Also, get your official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff gear at the funkandstuff.net store. Cool stuff like I'm wearing right here. Truth and Rhythm shirts. Show your support and love of the show and also the musicians and the music that they represent. Also want to give a shout out to the Funk Exhibition Center and Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio, of which I'm very proud to be an official funk ambassador. Go to thefunkcenter.org to learn more and keep the funk alive. And now, with all that, it's time to get on with the show. Enjoy. I'm thrilled to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership keyboardist, singer, composer, and producer Billy Beck of one of the greatest funk soul bands of all time, the legendary Ohio Players. First appearing with the group for its 1974 masterwork Skin Tight album, he was a primary figure during the Ohio Players' mid to late 1970s peak years on Mercury Records. During the 1980s, he went on to work on countless projects with others, including Roger Troutman, and he continues to perform with the Ohio Players today. For my money, in terms of both dexterity and tonal coloring of the music, he is one of funk's most underrated keyboard players. Billy, how are you? Welcome.
I'm great, man. I'm great. Thank you for the compliments.
My pleasure. I got something here that might take you back a little bit. I saved it from when one of the shows I saw you guys play out in California in the 1970s. And the cover's gone because I had put it on my wall, but it's the original program that you guys had for your shows. And you'll probably remember this, I'm sure. I don't know how many of these are still around, but there's your page there.
Yeah.
And so people can see, here's some good shots of you right there.
Yep.
Yeah. That was from either at the LA Shrine Auditorium in the mid-70s.
It was the Shrine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually took city buses to get to that because it was before I had a car or could drive or anything like that. So, yeah.
Great.
And
what I remember significantly about that show is, I was the youngest member of the group at that point in time. When I got with the group, I was 19 because I got with them in 73, and then turned 20 on June 18th, my birthday in 73. And so I was the youngest one in that group, and I remember about that Shrine show that's when I got a chance to meet Stevie Wonder. I'm like,
wow. Now, was that your first time playing in Los Angeles, or had you done before that?
Oh, no, no, no. I had only played locally, and locally and regionally in northeastern Ohio. But
Okay.
the Ohio players would always play up here in the northeastern and regional area, and I was a fan from the first time I heard Pain, and whenever they were close, I would make sure I went to the show. I was shoot, I was in high school.
I understand you had some formal training. How did you first get into keyboards, Billy?
I started playing when I was 4. Um, it was kind of a gift thing, and by the time I was 7, I was taking formal piano lessons, and then when I got into junior high school, a professor of music at Youngstown State University's Dana School of Music made me his protege and gave me all of my formal classical training for free. And by the time I got out of high school, I was already at junior college level. So,
And who were some of your musical heroes growing up?
oh my goodness. Uh, Chopin, uh, Bach, Beethoven, uh, James Brown. uh, Definitely James Brown, because when he came to, I'm originally from Youngstown, Ohio, which is in northeastern Ohio, about 100 miles south and west of Cleveland, south and east of Cleveland. And James Brown came to Stambaugh Auditorium, and I begged my mom. I was 12 years old, and my mom took me and dropped me off and came back and picked me up. Changed my whole life. All that classical training and stuff I had met the funk and soul, and it all got jumbled up.
In a good way, yeah.
Yeah, in a good way.
Um, so, there was a lot of things that happened quickly, at least from the outside looking in. Ohio players had success on Westbound, and of course they were together a long time before that. But they had success on Westbound, and Junie was, Junie Morrison was one of the primary featured performers of the band. But
Right.
he parted ways with the band, and the band switched labels, and you got in there somewhere. So how did that all work out?
Okay. Every time the players would come in our area, as I told you, I would make sure I was at the show because I was a fan. Uh, I mean, I knew Junie personally. Uh, they would always have a local opening band before they would come out. Well, I was always in the opening band. It would be a different band every time, but I would always be in it. And I think I was the only guy who was arrogant and incompetent enough to play one of their own songs and bring them out of the dressing room to get their attention. And so when I didn't know that Junie had quit the group, because this was after Ecstasy had come out. But word through the music grapevine spread pretty quickly, and there were a lot of people, auditioning for that spot. And I was working in the steel mill. I had 2 daughters by then. Was working in steel mill, and still going to YSU part time, Youngstown State University. So then I got a call from Satch, because Satch remembered me, because you know every time they had come to Youngstown, they kept seeing this kid with these glasses. Okay, and so I got a call, and then they wanted to fly me to Dayton. And I said, hell no, I've never been on a plane before. I'm not flying. So then they waited about maybe another couple months, 2-3 months down the line. And I had two of my partners from high school. They drove me down to Dayton overnight, and got to Satch's house about 7 o'clock in the morning. About 7:30, the Ohio Players tour bus pulled up. I got on the tour bus, and the rest is kind of history, because I thought I was only going to fill in for the weekend. At least that's what Satch told me, right? So after that weekend, I never went back. I guess that meant I had a job.
Wow.
Yeah, and I knew all their music, because I was a fan, and I'm a studier of music. I mean, I get down deep inside and to see who's doing what and listen to what's doing what. And so I knew how the horns were supposed to sound. I said, God help me, I've got to do what Junie does. So I came close enough to pull it off. Okay, and then as time went by, I started putting a little bit more of me into the show. And I think by that October or November of '73, we went into the studio up in Chicago, Paragon Studios. And we were doing that and flying back to Buffalo. We were playing at a nightclub called the Red Pepper Lounge. So we were playing that at nighttime, taking the red eye out, getting to Chicago in the morning, being in the studio all day, and then back out to Buffalo to get back to doing the shows. And that's how we recorded Skin Tight.
Wow. And of course, I'm going to show these as we go, but I mentioned before we start recording, I think, that this was the first album I bought with my own money. I actually won a $10 gift certificate to the record store, and a friend whose older brother had this recommended it, and I got it and just hooked me as a lifelong fan right then. But, you know, I felt like the group made a quantum leap, you know, nothing away from Junie or what they did on Westbound, but everything from the Ecstasy to Skin Tight just seemed to elevate to a new level of, you know, fidelity in the sound, the complexity of the arrangements, the songwriting, the coalescing of just such an identifiable sound.
Yeah.
How did that leap happen in such a little short time?
They kind of gave me my head in the studio once they saw, because it wasn't my first time in the studio. That's the other thing. I had been in the studio since I was about 11 or 12 years old, recording, being just a side musician for other people when they would need an organist or a pianist. And I mean, I'm a guy who practiced every day, about 6 hours a day, every day, homework and all. And so I was kind of ready for, and I knew my theory, my music theory, okay, which is theory. When you know your theory, it also helps you know how to blend different sounds together. So Sugar and I used to use a term called tonal harmony, okay? And the tonal harmony is the magic of it all, because everything has its tone and everything should have its own area and space. And when it does, fidelity-wise, you'll know it because you can hear it.
And I think on this record, I think Jive Turkey, I think, was the one that led, and then Skin Tight became an enormous hit. And you're name checked right on that big first hit. I mean, Sugar calls you out, right?
Yeah, yeah. The first voice you hear, the singing voice you hear is me. Yeah, so on Jive Turkey, and I never fancied myself as a singer, really. More of a better musician. And singing wise in my voice, I just thought I had a lot of, God blessed me with a good range of musical characters, should I say, because I had to learn how to imitate the granny voice from Junie. That was part of me keeping my job, right?
Is that part of the audition?
Oh yeah, that was it. That was it. The audition was actually doing a live show. Yeah, I had no audition. When I got on the bus, we were on our way to a gig. We did a Coliseum opening up for Al Green.
Nice.
That was my audition.
Trial by fire. Right? So yeah, the sound, was mature and just ripe and ready from the first Mercury record, but also the whole conceptual thing too, with the cover images and just, the way you guys photographed inside it. I mean, everything was so together from the get-go with Mercury that, you guys just exploded on the scene at that point.
Yeah, well, Mercury at that time, they didn't have very many black artists, and I don't think any that were successful during that period of time. And they kind of gave us the carte blanche, Once they heard what we were doing in the studio, they kind of gave us the carte blanche.
What can you describe a little bit? What was it like in the studio with those guys? I mean, and such enormous talents, and guys like Sugar and Diamond, and what was it like?
Oh, Diamond was always amazing to me. His dexterity and his vocal, his high background vocal also was always amazing. When I first moved to Dayton, well, not moved there, I was actually there, and I never left. But Diamond was the first one of the guys that came over, because I was staying in Satch's house. Diamond was the first one of the guys that came by Satch's house and said, "Hey, Beck, come on, let me take you out, show you the city." Took me by his home, introduced me to his wife and everything. That I'll never forget about it. Him and I are still that close, that brotherly close to this day. And Sugar and I, we connected on a whole nother level musically, because we were way up here somewhere. It's the only way I can explain it. We would sit and talk about music theory and about trying different ideas, stuff that hadn't been done. Like, for example, on the Fire album, I think, What the Hell, doing one complete song in a totally in a diminished key all the way through. Said, nobody's done that before. I said, okay, let's try it.
It seemed like all the experiments you guys were trying were just working, at least the ones that I heard.
Yeah, because we would get in there and just try to do different stuff that hadn't been done before, and we would listen to each other, okay, and everyone would just try it. Just if someone was asked to do something, they'd say, okay, let's go. And that total gung-ho attitude, okay, that's what made the difference, and there were, on some outtakes, there were a lot of mistakes, and we would laugh about it. So we would challenge each other, all kinds of little, just fun stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, when they use the term chemistry, I don't think there's a better example than the chemistry that those 7 Ohio players guys had, and 8 if you, or 9 if you extend it to, Chet and
Right,
uh,
right. Because
Robert.
I'm the one. I'm the one that basically gave the go ahead about Chet, because I knew Sugar needed more help after we had recorded a couple albums. He needed more help with guitar playing because there was guitar tracks here and there and here and there. I said, unless you're going to go grow a couple of arms, you need another guitar player. So I went and saw Chet. Chet was a Dayton native also. And he was with a local band there. As soon as I saw him and heard him sing, I said, "Oh, he's the guy. He's the guy."
I think
Chet and I are the Geminis of the group.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
He played live, I think, though, with you guys before he actually was on, or at least before he was credited on an album, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yes, he started playing live as early as, I think, in '74. Started playing with us live in '74.
One of the things I loved about the group too was just the whole thing that it was so self-contained, written by, performed by, produced by, arranged by, and I think that helped just have that vision consistent and crystallized and unfiltered and just the way it needed to be.
Right. Well, the record company, they had people come in, and as just like you've seen the Bowery Boys movies,
Yeah.
okay? You'd be like, okay, here he comes. Okay, you guys, okay, those guys distract him over here. You guys, you guys take him over here and get him attention so we can go ahead and get this done. We would keep them out of our hair, basically. So
Misdirect.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what we would do.
As great as Skin Tight was, though, I mean, and you already mentioned it, but I mean, Fire took it to a whole nother stratosphere. Just almost a flawless record. And, Fire, I'll never forget when I first heard that track. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And how was it? Did you feel like that record was going to be like it was? I mean, could you tell beforehand?
Well, I tell you what, we felt strong enough about the track, because we would always write our music first and put all of our horn arrangements on first, and then go write the lyrics and the melodies, which is different than everybody else. And because we played the Fire track, I'm not sure what we used to call it, but we played the track for Stevie Wonder. And he said, "I don't know what you're going to call it." He said, "But it's a hit." And he was right. He was right.
Was he in the same studio at the time, or?
No. We played it for him, I think, when we did that show out in the one you were telling at the
at the Shrine?
At the Shrine, yes. Mm-hmm.
That hit it so big, and you guys were riding so high that you were able to do a complete. I think it was right around that time when you did a complete midnight special that was just the Ohio players, right?
Yeah, which was cool. It was cool because I didn't know that we were doing a whole show. We were just doing what we do, because I thought we were just taping it and they were going to edit it, cut it up into different parts or whatever, to be shown this time and be shown at that time. And when my mom called me and said, "No, they're doing the whole show." I said, "What?" So yeah, that was special.
Yeah, that was a very special midnight special, and at the time, of course, way before internet and most other things, a friend of mine recorded it on a cassette player off the TV set speaker. And we used to listen to it all the time, even though it had like the hum from the TV and everything. But it was the only way we could keep listening to that midnight special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a real fun time. Fun time. Um, and yeah, that's when. Oh, that's because we had started on our road on our tour bus. We'd started using pop lock dancers.
That's right.
And no one had seen that before in a live show. So in our live show, so the nation got a chance to see it.
Yeah, I think was there just two of them, or was there more than two?
There were more than two, but it would be two. This two would come on, they'd go off, and then another two would come on.
Yeah, I remember. I also saw the show at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium in California. I don't know if you remember that one, but I think Side Effect was the opening act.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. We also did a show where we were the first group out there to use laser lights. We did a show in Pittsburgh, and we had laser lights, and they opened up the roof, and the laser was just everywhere over everybody, and I heard the crowd go, oh.
And of course, you had all the smoke and the whatever you call those siren-like lights for the fire.
Yeah, and laser lights. We tried. We would try a lot of stuff. Bernie Worrell and I, who were very good friends from George. I was the first keyboardist to have an endorsement from ARP string soloists.
ARP, okay.
Yeah, I had an endorsement from ARP. I was the first keyboard player to have an endorsement from ARP keyboards, and I used all their keyboards. There's ARP string soloists, because Bernie asked me. He said, "Beck, what's that you're using for strings?" And I told him it. So he started using it on all the Georgia stuff. And
what year about would you say that was?
Oh my goodness, I'd say that was about 70, 74, 75. Yeah.
Because definitely, when I think back to that period and listening to all the funk and soul bands and everything else, you and Bernie, I've always felt had a similarity in sort of the coloring of the music in the background with the orchestral kind of keyboards.
Yeah. We were each other's biggest fans. We were really that cool. We had a very good camaraderie when we would see each other on the road.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you someone else from the group who I also had a very good camaraderie with was Gary Schreider, the guy who wore the diapers.
Oh yeah, Gary Schreider.
Yeah, man. He could sing. That guy could sing. Ooh.
Yeah.
So,
but Bill, you were mentioning about you brought up It's Hell, or What the Hell is actually the name of that track, but
right.
There was so much innovation just on this Fire record. Of course, I Want to Be Free, and such a non-traditional.
There's a story behind that too.
Okay.
I was going through my first divorce, and we were really going at it. And Sugar and I were roommates on the road, in the hotel rooms. I'd be talking to him about it, brother to brother and stuff. So he wound up writing a song about I Want to Be Free. I said, thanks, bruh. Seriously, that is the story behind it. I was going through my first divorce.
Well, that must have
That
helped you
was,
feel a little better about it. That's such a great track.
oh yeah, yeah. It turned out to be, and and actually I got my divorce in that May of '75, and it was still playing on the radio, and I said, "Listen to this." Uh, but anyhow, that was there were so many funny stories. The laugh on fire, that was me, because Sugar and I co-led that. Sugar would lead the first line, and then I would lead the second line, and back and forth. And when it got to the laugh, the lady on the Fire album actually has a twin sister, and they were in the control room dancing and shaking their butts, and as I was singing that lead, the twin walked through the door. I mean, really shaking her butt, and I just busted out laughing.
So
I never did finish whatever the lyric was on the paper. And I said, okay, let me do it again. And the guy's fella said, no, let's listen to that.
So that's a real laugh.
Yeah, that's my real laugh.
Yeah.
That's my real. Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
a real laugh.
That's awesome. Did you guys? This ended up being sort of like a theme album too, because you had the Hell and the Ring from the Devil with the fire and all that. Did
Yeah. Once Satch because Satch was the one who would be the concept guy. He would come up with the concept for the album, the title, and then Sugar and I and everybody else would get to work, writing, constructing the music, and thinking about the lyrics and stuff.
I heard that at least on some of the cuts, maybe you guys would like just really jam for a long time and then pull something out of that to craft into the song. Did it work that
Yeah,
way?
yeah. Sometimes we would just turn the tape on and just hit a nice groove spot and just save the best parts of that groove spot, okay, and then make a song out of it.
Did that sometimes add up to the studio costs? Doing that?
Uh, yeah, my friend just gave me the name Ark. He just thought of it. Okay, back to your question. Uh, yeah, oh yeah. Well, we didn't think about it then. We didn't worry about it because we were just creating. The tapes never stopped rolling. They never stopped rolling. From the time that we stepped into the studio control room, but out of the control room and into the studio where everyone was at, the tapes started rolling and they never stopped. And which obviously it's not the best way to go. We found that out in the long run. For all purposes of how things happen and how quickly things happen, I still take that. I'm glad it happened that way. Okay, but most of us at that point in time didn't know anything about royalties or what's deducted or against your royalties or anything like that. We found out.
Yeah. Everyone eventually finds out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So my advice to you young guys, don't listen to them when they try to advance you this against your royalties. Don't do it.
don't sell your soul like that.
All right.
So the arrangements that we heard on those records, Billy, were you mostly doing the arrangements, or was it you were
Yeah.
even into the horns, or was that mostly Satch
Yeah.
doing that?
That was me with doing the horns.
Uh-huh.
That was once again my classical training music knowledge. Having an idea of the range of the instruments, the difference between an E flat, a B flat, and a concert instrument, and what their ranges are, and you know how they should match or mesh.
Did everybody always get on board with that, or did they sometimes say, "Man, Billy, you're being too cerebral," or whatever? You know?
No, most of the time, I never got any complaints because it was always a challenge. Remember, I told you we would love to challenge each other. So it was like, oh, I can play that. Oh, I bet you can't play it or get it right on the first time. Oh, I bet you I can. 20 takes later. Yeah, but it was always a challenge and a lot of fun. But yeah, for the most part, the horn lines and stuff, I did all that.
Wow, impressive! Congratulations on that. What we haven't mentioned Marshall Jones. What can you tell us about him? Because he was such an
He
understated bass player,
he
but so
had
important.
he had a bass rhythm pocket unlike any other bass player that I've ever played with in my life. Uh, and when I told you I was an Ohio player fan, I would have. That's what I admired about him because he would go in his own zone, and instead of playing the pocket a usual bass player would play, okay, he would play something different, and so everyone was slightly from the bottom up, with him being the bottom. We all had to kind of shift to complement that. You know what I'm saying? Everybody had to shift a little to the left or shift a little to the right to make it all work. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, and that's would give it some unique character. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's why it became so unique.
yeah. And he, like I say, he wasn't flashy. Kind of like I think maybe of like Cool and the Gang, not flashy, but just the holding it down. Just like
Right,
yeah.
right. That was him. That
And what was he like as just a
was him.
guy?
Uh, the best track, well, the one most impressive one to me that he did was Hushiku,
Hmm.
because in the beginning of that we think we have recorded this track down at Miami Criteria Studios. Uh, I think that was only one of the two other places that we ever recorded beside Paragon. And we had been recording all day and all night, and cats were sleepy and tired. And so the first thing you hear on the record is his backbone gone. He can't do nothing. As that was because everyone was asleep. So we saved that and edited it to the front of the song.
That song is killer rhythmically. I mean, the guitar part too, and the drum part, and just wow.
Yeah, that guitar line, that's Chet. That's Chet. That's that down south, down home, backwood guitar line. Yeah, Chet was born in Louisiana,
Ah,
so that's that down south bucket
like from
guitar line.
a little bit from the meters type of deal. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So that Hoochie of course, was a contradiction, and got to talk about. To me, this is when the band hit the zenith creatively, and just everything was just at its ultimate on Honey. Um,
And you know the title track for that. Uh, I wrote that title track for that on during the fire sessions. Uh, uh, and did not have any idea what to call it. Uh, I I asked Diamond, I said, Diamond, come on out and play this with me. So first it was just nobody on it but me and Diamond. And then I did some la 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 and some don't you hold on. You know, those type of backgrounds. And, you know, put some organs and strings on it and just left it. And it didn't make the fire cut, so when it came time for Honey, we went back and grabbed it and said, well, let's call this one Honey. And I said, oh, okay, that makes sense, because it's a little sweet. Okay, it wasn't a funky song, it was kind of ballady-y, kind of slow, you know, so. That was special. That was special that the band decided to choose that song for the title track.
That one has sort of, I would say, a lush quality to it.
Yeah.
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 And that album too had a theme running through with Sweet Sticky Thing and the Honey, and also in Let's Do It. You know, birds do it, bees do it.
Which we got sued for by the Gershwin Foundation.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. George and Ira Gershwin. Yeah, that's from their song. Let's do it. Let's fall in love.
Well, actually, I don't. Oh, go ahead.
I didn't hear you.
Well, I was going to say I don't remember the gentleman's name, but I saw your attorney was recently on a Funk Center interview. Was talking about, you know, doing your legal. I guess he was your attorney for many years with the Ohio Players.
Who would that be?
He handled the IRS stuff, he said, and for everybody,
Okay.
but except Satch, he said.
Okay. He handled a lot of the financial legal stuff for the group when it came to financial legal stuff like the IRS. But for years, our legal attorney was Linda Minch and Dick Shelton and Linda Minch. And because Linda Minch still is my attorney to this day. That's who I was talking to when you tried to call me the first time.
Oh, okay. It's great when you can have such long-term relationships like that.
Yeah, it is. Really, it is. Because she had just gotten with the firm the same year that I just got with these guys.
Wow.
She got with the Dick Shelton firm in '73, and I got with 73, 74, and I got with the Players in 73, 74. So.
Sweet Sticky Thing is another one of those just so innovative and unique sounding and just nothing like it. How did that come to be? I mean, just what a great track.
That one was Sugar's Baby. That was Sugar's Baby. He came up with those changes, and I just followed his lead. And he took breaks, and so instead of just you leaving the breaks open space, I tried to make some kind of overture out of them with the strings. Some kind of drama. You know, take the people on a musical, take their ears on a musical ride.
Yeah, that song is just very unique in the way it just constantly has ebbs and flows of building up the musical tension.
Right.
You know.
Right.
How did FOP come to be?
Well, we were back in the day, you know, unlike today, because nowadays they say a lot of things on records and a lot of profanity and what have you. Back in those days, you didn't say profanity, so we said, we'll make up our own word. So we were actually talking about making love. And we used, made up our own word, FOPP. Still started with F. It just ended with a P.
Still 4 letters, yeah.
4 letters, right.
It's got a vowel in there.
Right.
I always heard
So
a lot
the
of
next time, the next time you listen to the song, you just say, "Oh, okay, I get it."
yeah, after 40 years or whatever.
Right.
Because there's always been debate whether it was a dance or doing the act. You know, it's like.
Well, it was an act first, and then we tried to make it into a dance.
But that groove on that track, I mean, to me, I was like, at that time, it's like, okay, Fire, that can never be topped, right? And then Fop
Right.
came out, and I was like, that groove is even harder and nastier, I think, than Fire.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that could be done. And I think to some extent, because it was so fierce, it didn't get to be as big of a crossover hit as Fire. But I thought it was just as worthy as Fire.
Mm-hmm. But because Sugar tried to go a little bit on the rockish end with some of his guitars, and I'm not sure if our fans were ready to accept us doing rockish type things, you know.
It's still so funky, that track.
Yeah, it is.
And then later, Rock Band covered it. Soundgarden did a version of it.
Yeah. It's made me feel good that some bands have covered our music, and a lot of artists have sampled our music.
Yeah.
That's I mean as well.
Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers, they did Love Roller Coaster from that same album. How do you just feel flattered from those things, or do you sometimes think?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely feel flattered. Definitely feel flattered. You know, that is that's like somebody saying, "You did a good job, sir." You know.
Yeah.